That's weird. Alright. So that is our reading today. Yeah, that's a really odd story. I don't know. To me, it definitely reads more like a story than, reality, which is always interesting because, people who actually believe in the Bible, like, say these kind of things actually happen, but it's like there's so many leaps you have to take in, like, this story alone, where it's like he's sold into slavery, and then just because he's like this great guy, he got put like second in command in Egypt, which honestly I don't think that is how well, even in our society today, that's not how that works. Like, you have to work your way up, and you have to show that you have those skills and things. You don't just get to magically be second in command because you can magically interpret a dream that someone said they had. So it's interesting, and I don't know, it's interesting that people like will take those magical aspects of it and just say, well, yeah, it happened because God is magic. Like, God has magic and he's able to do that. But it's such a leap to like think about that and to think that through, and to just like, I think you have to like either be indoctrinated into that, or you have to come to it later in life when you're in a vulnerable state to the point where you actually believe it. And I don't know, it's really interesting. And just history in general. Like, I look at a lot of historical facts when it comes to the Bible, and I don't know everything. Like, I've read a lot of books. I read like The Bible Unearthed. I really liked that book because it was talking about like a lot of archaeology and history that like doesn't line up with the Bible, and how secular people, when they go out and they look at those things, they don't go in with like this bias that the Bible is true. They go in with like, well, let's look at the evidence, and then we'll come to the conclusion after we find all the evidence. And most of that evidence has come to the conclusion that a lot of the things in the Bible were just stories made up over time by people who, in that culture, they wanted to have their own stories about how their culture and had, progressed and come to be over time. And I think you see that in a lot of cultures. Like, there's a lot of like cultures that have myths about, how the world was created, and how their society in general is created, and how they think humans came to be. And it's interesting that, some cultures like look at that and go, yeah, that's myth. That is not backed up by anything historical, and we know it's myth, but it's a part of our culture. Whereas the Bible is very much like, I don't mind the Bible being a part of our culture, and the fact that it just kind of shows us how humanity used to think, and how, because they lacked the understanding of science, and they lacked the understanding of like history, and the way that we do things in modern times, it just shows how they used their thought process to make things work. And people make gods to make things they didn't understand work, like floods or lightning or thunder. Like, these are all things that, I mean, if you were a person just living out in the desert tending sheep, you would have no idea how these things actually work. And it can be scary. And I think as people, we want answers. We want to know, like, well, why is this happening? What is making that lightning come down? What is making that noise in the sky? And sometimes to get those answers, we have to, make up stories or make up things in our minds that make sense to us. And I think that's a lot of what the Bible is just people trying to figure out what was going on. and they didn't have a firm grasp on, everything we do today, and they didn't have all the knowledge that we have today. So I don't know, that's my whole thing, is like, I like studying the Bible from the aspect that, like, it's myth, and it's very much shows how people, like, used to think and how they saw the world in those days. But my problem is people using it in society today, where we've obviously evolved over time to have, better morals and better values, and we understand things a lot more because we use things like the scientific method and critical thinking skills and things like that to come to find out what these things actually are, and to come to the conclusions after we see all the evidence. And I think that's something that a lot of people just miss when they read the Bible, is that, me being raised in it, I was never taught that a lot of the historical things in it are not accurate at all and line up with what we know is true. So yeah, and that's a big reason why I left, is because just seeing that information and knowing that there is evidence to back up the sciences and the history and things like that, and not coming to my conclusion first like I had my whole life, but coming to my conclusion after I had looked at all the evidence. And it is always interesting, because a lot of people say, like, even like family members of mine will be like, oh, well, you just left the church because you were looking for something and you found what you were looking for. But it was actually the opposite of that, because I was looking for the evidence that it was true. And I think people don't always understand that when I talk about it, is that my whole purpose of doing what I did when I went out to look into the Bible was to make sure what I was being told was true, but also to, bring my family back together and bring my husband back to Christianity, and to, show that I did have a firm grasp on what I believed, and that there was enough evidence to prove that it was true, and that what he was being told wasn't true. But when you look at it from the opposite direction, where you don't start with the conclusion and you actually look at the evidence, it definitely can lead you down roads that you never expected. And that's what happened to me, is I went down so many rabbit holes that I didn't even know existed, that I didn't even know had evidence to back them up. And I could have stopped at any time, just been like, nope, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna stay in my faith and just ignore it. And instead I chose to keep going and to pursue it, and now I'm here today being an advocate for atheism, and standing up for other people who might feel like they want to leave, or have doubts, have questions, and they don't have people to go to, because if you go to people in the church, a lot of them aren't willing to look into that stuff, or if they do, they just say we have a bias, or we're not open enough to understand the Bible, or we don't understand the Bible because we don't have God on our side. There's always an excuse, and I feel like a lot of people right now have so many questions, and they don't know where to turn. And I think having this online community is a huge help to anyone who is questioning, and anyone who doesn't know where to turn. Because I know for me, like, when I came out, I felt like I didn't really have anyone to, like, talk to, well, other than my husband, but, I mean, we had both just come out of the church, so it wasn't like, you know, someone who actually had studied this stuff forever and, like, understood it, and, you know, just having those people around, I think, is important, and I didn't realize for a long time that that was something that I needed in my life, and, ever since I started on YouTube, like, I absolutely adore the atheist community that I'm a part of, and, yeah, they've just given me more than I ever expected, and I've gained a lot of friendships through that, and, a lot of us have come out of the church, and we talk, and we are able to, you know, connect in ways that we can't with other people that we know, because the other people we know mostly in those groups they're Christians, so, yeah, so I would suggest that if you are doubting or questioning, or, you know, things aren't making sense, that you do look into, you know, the YouTube community, or people here on Twitch even. I mean, you don't have to be a YouTuber or be on, you know, Twitch. You don't have to be a face on the screen. Like, you can just go in the chat rooms and talk to other people and make friends that way, and, I don't know, I think, especially with COVID and everything else going on, that this is a great way to connect with people, and, I hope that what I do can help people too, and I'm very grateful for this, and I'm very grateful that I can be a voice for people who feel like they can't have a voice. So anyway, that's my spiel for today. Thank you all for coming. Sorry it was a late night, but I've had a busy day, so I couldn't get on till now, but thanks everyone for watching, and I will try to be back on tomorrow to read the next part. So we're going to start on 47 tomorrow, so, yeah, if you guys want to come back tomorrow and talk. Also, if you guys want, like, if you have any questions or anything from today's reading that you might, like, look into and, you know, don't have answers for or whatever, we can always, like, at the beginning of tomorrow, we can always go through that again, and, you know, if people have more in-depth things, I'm willing to look at that, and, you know, other people in the chat who might know more about the Bible. So, yeah, if you have any questions or anything, write them down and bring them tomorrow and write them in the chat. I want this to be as informative and interactive as possible, because I know there's a lot of things people don't know, and I don't know everything either, so, yeah, just learning from one another, I think, is a great tool too, so. Thank you all for coming. I hope you have a wonderful evening. I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks, guys.